So, just did my January TBR. I thought I would do my first January update. It is the 5th. Have I read any of those TBR books? No, I haven't. But you know what? I don't care. They're on it. They're all February arcs. If you watch the TBR video, you've heard this. They're all February arcs, and it's just for me to keep track of what I need to read next month, by next month, for next month. So, it's not a big deal. I have read some things this past couple days. My childcare is all sick. Like, everyone's sick. So, I've been working a full-time job and taking care of my little one and starting her homeschooling curriculum all in the last, week. So, I have not wanted heavy things. Wanted really light reads. I wanted real chill stuff, so that's what we've got. I have a book haul because, again, it's been rough, and I have already broken my book buying ban, but I'm going to just keep trying to hold to it because that's the best I can do. The things that I have read so far, I've got two physical books here to talk about. I read through Barbarian's Prize by Ruby Dixon. This is one I'm pretty sure I have read. Once I got into reading it, I was like, oh yes, I remember this one. This is Tiffany and Saluk's story. Tiffany is one of the girls from the ship that was raped in the first book, and so this was all about her sort of recovering from the trauma of that. And because of that, the romance is very slow. It's very sweet. There's little to no progression and development with Saluk because it all has to be Tiffany's story, as Ruby points out in the epilogue afterward. And it was the sweet, sugary rush that I needed while I was watching my daughter the day before yesterday. It was great. I love the Ice Planet Barbarians. They're really good and really fun. If you don't know what the blue alien romance books are, bunch of women get kidnapped and they end up on a planet they call not Hoth because it's frozen. Not Hoth, but it's a frozen snowy planet, and they end up with these blue alien barbarians and have to survive. The whole point of the series is that as they survive and move the plot forward, as things change, they discover more about the world, they're also pairing off, and it's romances. So it's all good stuff. Again, I love Ruby Dixon. I love the series. It's brain candy. So that one I did read. And I read Reach of Peace by Daniel B. Green yesterday. This is Daniel Green of BookTube fame. This was his first novella, I think. I got this used on Pango. I was buying something from a seller, and in full honesty, this was $5, so I threw it on. Because I was interested in it, I just hadn't picked it up. This, I think I hyped up a little bit too much in my brain. Had it thinking it was gonna be great. It was good. I don't think it was, mind-blowing. This is about a police force, that's the word I want, as they investigate a very gruesome murder and things kind of unravel. This was like a 3-star, but the ending was good. I can't really say much about it without giving it away. It's less than 200 pages, but that ending took me by surprise. I'm not gonna lie. I will pick up the next book. I have the next book in my cart on Amazon, so the next book will get read. That's all I'm saying. This is pretty good. I was not what I expected, but this is pretty good. The other thing I read, hold on. I think I read another romance. I read Midnight Drop by Lee Jaco. Yes, Midnight Drop by Lee Jaco. This was another one of her Hollow Knights novellas. This is, again, romance, like I said. It's between Bailey and Aaron. And this is two cosplayers who have to host an event, and they're kind of enemies, and they end up, of course, becoming lovers. That's the trope in this. And they're both into BDSM, and they're both switches. So one is dominant, and then the next encounter, the other may be dominant, and the other submissive. So it was really good. I enjoyed it. I liked there's a lot of attention to detail in the cosplay portion. I can tell that Lee Jaco really pays attention to the source material that she uses for these, and I appreciate that. And I really liked the different settings and how much she packed into such a short story. So it's great. I liked it. I mean, different settings, it all takes place at the party, but the different activities and the people they talk to, things like that. It was good. And the last thing I read was actually an arc, and this was technically the first thing I finished this year, and that's Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. This is Emily Wilde's book 2. And in this one, Emily and Wendell end up going to a new location to try and locate the door to a place. I don't want to spoil the first book. And they end up investigating in the process the disappearance of 2 scholars from about 50 or more years ago, because those scholars seem to keep reappearing in Emily and Wendell's vision. They're around them, they keep seeing them, they have dreams about them. Emily keeps getting visited by a mysterious guy who might be one of them, things like that. In this one, we get a lot of shadow, we get a lot more nasty fairies. There was a pretty gruesome fairy attack on a new character that genuinely had me a little shocked, and you know what, I really liked this. I will most likely be trying to pick up the Fairy Loot edition of this. I liked it enough to fork over the extra money so that I get this special edition to match my first book. It was good. I really enjoyed it. If you liked the first Emily Wilde, I do think you should pick up this one. It really sets up what's going to be a very interesting sequel. Very interesting sequel. I think we're going to get a lot of Wendell and his backstory elaborated on. He's gonna, I think Wendell's gonna do some things. So if you know what, if you know, you know. This is good. It's good. Pick it up. It's a little slow in the beginning. I thought Emily Wilde, the first one, was a little slow in the beginning too, though, so it's okay. Ride through it. The end is really good. So that's the stuff I've read in the past 5 days. I'm out of breath. I keep filming these updates after I filmed other videos. I'm not good at talking for long periods of times. I'm very introverted. The only time that I talk like this, besides videos, is when I'm running Dungeons and Dragons games. And I'm not good at this. I am currently reading How You Get the Girl by Anita Kelly. Really loving it so far. It's a very cute romance. The dedication at the beginning was to people who live in Tennessee, and you know what? I appreciate that. I live in Tennessee, and it's a very conservative state. I'll just say that. It's a very friendly state, but it's a conservative state. So that's the thing. And it's very beautiful here. I love it here, but sometimes the people here are a little hard, and that's okay. One of the biggest problems I have with living in Tennessee is stereotypes. Because while, yes, I prefer to be barefoot, that doesn't mean that I run around and pop out babies and I'm barefoot all the time. Please stop stereotyping me, because that's usually how we're represented in books. As Hicks. I mean, I will gladly take the label of hillbilly, but that doesn't mean that everyone, that's for me to say. Anyway, book haul. I did, as I said I was going to, get a copy of Sky's End by Mark J. Gregson. I loved this book last year. It's so good. It's out in the world now. Please go buy it if you like it. The naked hardcover is absolutely lovely. I love it so much. I love it so much. This is going on my shelf back here with the other books that I love because I love it so much. I also got, a couple, 3 indies. So I mentioned in a previous video, in my favorites video, I think, I ordered a copy of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. This is the first in the Bound and the Broken series. It's a dragon riding fantasy. I read The Fall, and it made my best books of the year last year. I say as if that wasn't a week ago. Super excited. This isn't as long as I thought it was going to be. I mean, it's still 500 plus pages, but it's not as long as I thought. I know the later books get much, much, much bigger. So, small blessings in that it's not that long, but I'm excited for it. And the next one was A Gamble of Gods. I keep saying but A Gamble of Gods by Mitriel Faywood. I read the first 2 chapters of this for a try a chapter chag on the SPFBO semifinalist video that I scrapped last year, and I really liked this, and it lingered in the back of my brain, and I was like, I really want to read this. I got some Amazon store credit, so I dropped it on this because, yay. This is a really nice addition to it's shiny and super floppy. It's good stuff. I am super excited. This one has got an academic who is sent out away from the school because some of his students get targeted in a hit, and they get wiped out, and a whole lab worth of students and so the school sends him off on a research trip to keep him and the rest of the students safe. It's got dragons, I assume, because there's a dragon. What more can someone want? I don't know what to tell you. And the last one, I'm not gonna defend myself, but we'll say sleepy one night, and I ordered Heliotrope by Palmer Pickering. I've heard very good things about Palmer Pickering. She is very popular from what I can tell online. I read the first little chunk of this again when it was an SPFBO semifinalist last year. I really liked it. The writing wasn't what I would call like mind-blowingly good, but the setup was very intriguing, and I really wanted to know where we were going to go with this guy laying tile, so I bought it, evidently. And the other things that I got, I did get the Spy Family light novel that just came out, because I love Spy Family very much, by Tatsuya Endo. The idea and concept is by Tatsuya Endo. Usually these light novels are written by someone else, and this indeed was written by Aya Yajima? I don't know why they're so tan on that cover, but yeah. I also picked up Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I know people either love or hate Stephanie Garber. I read the first chunk of this in the bookstore, and I enjoyed it, and it sounds kind of kooky and crazy. And Barnes Noble, Books A Million was having a sale, so I also got Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Sugimura. Did I pick up Once Upon a Broken Heart just so I could take advantage of the sale and get Lonely Castle? Yes, I did. Will I read both of them? Yes, I will. But again, I definitely picked up one so I could get the other at a discount. But that's it for the little bit I have for this update. I will hopefully not haul very many more books. I have a few things coming in that have been ordered previously, and I have a broken binding order that's come in. I ordered 2 books on their Boxing Day sale, and I'm so very excited about them. I just got a shipping notification for the second one today, so those will be here soon. But outside of that, I don't plan on getting anything more without reading it. I have to read 2 before I can buy a book, so I'm trying to keep to that. Technically, I didn't break it now I'm thinking about it to get those 2. Whatever. Still probably won't haul very many more books. But that's it. I will talk to you guys again soon in my next update. Hopefully I'll have read some of my arcs. Let's all keep our fingers crossed, okay? Yeah, fingers crossed. It has been a few weeks. There's been a lot going on. So I have quite a bit to talk to you about, and I'm going to try to go through it rather quickly. I'm also going to try and do this in order of enjoyment, how much I enjoyed the books. So we're going to start off at the top of the list with a DNF. I DNF'd The Lights on Knockbridge Lane by this was by Rowan Parrish. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. I just was bored. I was bored and I didn't want to keep reading. This is one of the books that I have pulled off of my bookshelf. It's up in the closet now to unhaul right now. And I'm just trying to get through the things on my shelves. So I'm gonna stop waggling my pen at you. So this was the first thing I pulled off the shelf. It wasn't a hit. It was also difficult for me to read because it's mass market and I have problems with my hands. So this was a DNF. The next on the list is a 2-star read, and that was Your Shadow Half Remains, and I believe that's by Sunny Moran. Let me double check myself. Yes, Moran. This comes out next month, and this is a very short horror novel. It's very, very short. It toes the line for me between the two. And the short summary on this, and the reason why I didn't enjoy this, was mainly, I think someone took the COVID lockdowns really hard. They took the COVID lockdowns really hard, or they're experimenting with the idea of having taken the COVID lockdowns very hard. This is about a young woman who has moved into her family's like lake home thing. I don't know if it was lake home or rental cabin or something. The world is effectively kind of ending slowly due to a unknown pathogen that causes people, when they look into each other's eyes, to just erupt into unexplainable violence and attempt to kill each other. It's incredibly gruesome. The book is very gory. Often I felt unnecessarily so. I don't have a problem with gore, but even here it kind of felt like it was just presented for the oh look at me kind of factor, and it didn't ring right for me. But the world is dark, it's gory, people can't look at each other, you can't even look at your own children, your family members, that sort of thing, without the risk of going mad and killing them and yourself. So she sequesters herself in this house and finds out within the first few pages that she has a neighbor, and they strike up a sort of bond and a relationship. And that's kind of the sum of the story. The themes in this one it really plays with are the ideas of like distance and othering and seclusion and being sequestered away from others. And it's, like I said, it feels like a post-COVID horror book, and those don't quite work well for me. I have no problems with those type of books. They don't strike right for me. Horror has to hit on a nail. You know, you have to be scared or it has to trigger something in you, and this does not bother me at all. I didn't have a lot of problems with the COVID lockdown. I'm very good at staying home and being by myself. But I also had family in the house with me, and I was mostly fine. So I don't have a strong feeling towards this sort of novel. And it definitely has that feeling. So if you like that sort of horror, this will probably work for you very well. Keep in mind there is some strange violence against animals at one point. That scene didn't totally make a lot of sense to me. In reflection, I could maybe see what they were going for, but it didn't totally come across in the moment. So, like I said, 2 stars. It didn't work for me. That's alright. Not everything is gotta work for everybody. The next thing I read, checking my list because there's quite a few, is this one is like a 2.5, maybe a 3. The Baker and the Bard by Fern Hott. This is a middle grade graphic novel about 2 friends who go off on a trip to gather mushrooms for the bakery that our titular baker works at. The story is cozy, it's cute, it's honestly fun? Fun is the word I have to use. The art style was exceptionally sweet and cute, but almost too juvenile. It felt too weak to carry the story at times. I didn't care for certain panels or the way certain things were drawn, but that's just me nitpicking. My other main, not complaint, but just thing I would like to point out was that this goes out of its way to make a conversation about the gender identity of one of the characters, which I absolutely have no problem with. I love reading about that sort of thing. The inclusion in books, novels, it's great, it's fantastic, but this was very inorganic and it felt very shoved in just for the necessity of having it, even though the entire novel we are referring to that character with they, them pronouns. There is no question there. Even for a middle grade reader, I think it would come across very well in this day and age, but the conversation was shoved in awkwardly and it really stalled out the story and stopped it in a strange way that I didn't care for. It could have been worked in a little bit better, and it just wasn't. And so that combined with the art style and the overall just kind of feelings that I have on it kind of dropped it down to like a 2.5, 3 star. Let's see, the next lowest rated book, everything else I pretty much enjoyed, to be honest with you. I have finished a few arcs, so let's talk about the books I own before we talk about the arcs. So first up, I finished Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Honestly, this was fun. This was very sweet. This was really enjoyable. There are like 2 sides of the fence to these books. Stephanie Garber, really, I feel. People either absolutely hate her for some reason, her writing style, her books, I don't get it, or they absolutely love it, which also not in that camp. This was absolutely fine. This was very fun. This was like a 3.5, a 4 star for me. I don't usually like YA, and this was something I liked. I mean, I have no real complaints. I tabbed it. I'll be keeping this copy, and I plan on getting the next few books. This is, I feel like I should summarize it, even though I feel like most people have read this, about a young woman who, in the first chapter, who is basically a deity of broken hearts and asks him to stop the marriage between the boy she loves and her stepsister because she believes that he's being forced into it. He stops it, but in a way she doesn't expect, and she has to unstop the marriage, and in the process things get upset and she ends up on this journey of sorts. This was fine. I really, I fell more on the enjoyment side. I didn't absolutely love it, but I really enjoyed it. And if you have a YA reader who likes almost fairy tale like stories, because this had a very fairy tale feeling, I would recommend it. I would pick it up for them if they haven't already read it. I think a lot of people have read it at this point. I'm very late to the game. I also finished A Love Martyr by Anthony Ryan. Oh, it is so good. Disclaimer, the first portion of this is fairly slow. Actually, it's pretty much the first half is a little slow. It's not super dry, but it is even dry. So the first portion of this, we're in a castle being sieged. So we're getting a lot of details on siege warfare, what it's like to live in this castle while it's sieged. And then they besiege a castle, and then in the latter half, things pop off. This is the second book of the Covenant of Steel series, and the first book was The Pariah, and the series follows Alwyn Scribe as he lives the outlaw life. Then he has to find a new path in life and ends up through several odd and very interesting encounters following a woman who may be mad, who may be having religious visions. No one knows for sure, but he ends up following her and becomes a confidant and becomes part of her closest circle. And we are off. This one, they are kind of working for the king. Not really, sort of. There is, trouble, conflict there, if you will. And things really pop off in the last half, like I said. And I absolutely loved the ending on this. The last line in this book had me flopping like a fish in bed. I'm a very emotive person, if you haven't noticed. I'm a very emotive person, and when I'm reading and something really gets me, I emote, big emotes, and I was reading this on my Kindle, and the last line had me my husband, who has read this already, was like, oh, did you finish it? So, this was fantastic, 5 stars. I continue to say this series is phenomenal. It does take a little effort on the part of the reader, but it is completely worth it for me. I love these books. Absolutely highly recommend them. If you are an epic fantasy fan and you don't mind a slightly obnoxious main character, those are going to be great reads. I also read the next Power Rangers graphic novel really quickly. This is volume 6. And this one, we are still dealing with Finster, who is not loose, but his creations are loose. Rita Repulsa, at the beginning of this graphic novel, has not returned to Earth, but Finster is still mucking around. And the Rangers have caught him, but they have not caught his creations, which he let loose. These are beings who look exactly like humans, but at a certain point, a certain time, they turn into these mad monsters who go on rampages, destroying things, killing people, that sort of thing. And it's the Rangers working with a former Ranger. We get some history of some previous Ranger teams as she attempts to help them find these creatures before they get big and kill people. And it was very fun. The last part of this also ended on a hell of a cliffhanger. And I have volumes 7 and 8 in the mail. My husband bought them for me, so the snow has delayed them. But I will probably read those when they come in, hopefully tomorrow, I think. We'll see. And the arcs. I said I had a few things. There's a lot of things. Ooh. Lies. One more red book that is not an arc. I read Higher Love by Alexandra House. The last few days have been especially bad, which means I have been reading some romance. This is a black love novella about, I don't have any notes on this one yet because I just finished this yesterday. And I'm already on another one, so I've already forgotten some of the names. A woman, she is a travel? What's the word for it? She's a travel blogger, and she goes to a festival, and on the way she updates her fiance, and her friend calls and says there's something weird going on with your fiance's accounts. Turns out he has blocked her on all media and has broken up with her without breaking up with her, without actually telling her, which is really scummy. And she meets a man at the festival, and she kind of has rebound relationships with him, and then they end up crossing paths and falling in love. And I really had a lot of fun with this. It was so fun. The cover is stunning, absolutely stunning. That's why I picked it up. And there are 3 books in this series. They follow the three friends, I do believe, and I am getting the next two. So you will see more of these in the next few weeks. I actually plan on buying the second one probably tonight and picking it up when I finish the current one that I'm reading at a different author's book. But this was a lot of fun. If you really like romance novellas, if you want something that's just so good for the brain, it's a little messy, but it's very fun. Highly, highly recommend this one. Okay, so the arcs. The arcs. The first arc that I read, I think there's only two. Your Shadow Remains was an arc, but these two arcs I both really liked. Yes, there are only two. The Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles by Malka Older. This was a great follow-up to the Mimicking of Known Successes. I will say, though, that this is possibly just not quite as good or as strong as Mimicking as far as the mystery and the plot part of it. This book's strength lies in its world building and the detail and what's the word I want? It's detail and what it gives you of the history. We really get a history of the people who live in the rings around Jupiter and the people who live on Io, one of the moons of Jupiter. There is a fraught relationship between the two groups. We get to see some of that. Mosa and Palleti actually travel to Io at one point, which is very cool. The mystery was not super strong, but in solving the mystery, they actually look at a lot of this history, a lot of the world, and it's how it works. And that worked fantastic for me. These books are a mystery novella series about two women, Mosa, who is an investigator, and Palleti, who is a scholar. They live on the rings, these rings that orbit Jupiter that humanity has colonized after they accidentally destroyed, or accidentally, intentionally, after Earth has been uninhabitable for some years. And Mosa is our kind of Sherlock Holmes type of investigator. She is very quirky. She has some distinct personality traits that make her difficult to get along with or cold to some people, and Palleti is an old friend who gets drawn into her investigations. Mimicking of Known Successes was a fantastic start. I highly recommend it if you like mystery science fiction novellas, and this one, like I said, really, really good follow-up. A little weaker in some parts, but stronger in others than the first, which balances out really well for me. And the other arc that I read, which I gave 5 stars, and I absolutely loved it, was The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This was also a murder mystery. I am really jiving with those murder mysteries right now. I'll tell you what, this one starts very slow. We get a little bit of a fast jump with a, oh shit, that's how he died moment, but then it slows down and then the end is just wow. So this is about, I think his name is Den. I almost said Don. Den, who is the assistant to also an investigator who was exiled to his little sleepy town outside of the main rings of the empire in which they live. They've mostly been doing things like investigating tax fraud and things like that. And at this point, you know, he's kind of settled into this dull job. But then they get called to investigate the murder of a general at a high-powered person's house nearby. The method of murder was a plant that erupted from the man's body, planted itself in the ground, and devoured him as it ate its way up through the house. So that was fun. So they have to figure out, 1, how that happened, and 2, why it happened. They end up leaving their sleepy little town, of course, as more murders occur, and you begin to see more of this empire, and we go to this military town that stands on the edge of the empire, where they fight back these titan monsters that come from the sea that attempt to break in and wreak havoc before dying and poisoning the land around them. Such a fantastic book. It sounds like there's a lot going on, and there is, but Robert Jackson Bennett handles it all so well. He balances these spinning plates fantastically. I was strung out the whole time. I didn't know. It wasn't until the last maybe 50 pages, 60 pages that I figured out who the murderer is. And for me, that's pretty impressive. I'm very good at solving things before they, culminate. And this one, I was like, maybe no, I'm missing something somewhere. No, yes, what? It was great. I highly recommend it. Like I said, a little slow in its build up, but then it really, really gets its strength and gets going. It's like rolling down the hill. It starts off slow and it really goes. I adored Den and Anna, the investigator. Den is very taciturn, very straight. Anna gives him crap for always being frowning. He looks not intimidating, but he looks like he's no fun because he's a very straight lace. On the other hand, she keeps herself blindfolded because sensory input is too much for her. She often reads with augments in her fingertips that allow her to detect ink and the like bumps and grooves in paper, which was very neat. This whole world is full of people who are augmented in certain ways, so we see a lot of different like strength augments. Den himself is what's called an encoder. He can use a scent vial to trigger himself, and he can like encode memories in his mind, and then later he smells that vial again and he can relate details down to like the smallest thing of like a scene or a book or a song just by the way the smell wakes up his mind. Fantastic, fantastic. It's very plant-based. There are giant mushrooms that serve as air conditioners. The plants erupting from people's bodies as a form of murder was definitely unique. And we see a lot of other things. A lot of worms that want to eat parts of you, like your cheeks. And to quote the character that was talking about it, not your face cheeks. That made me laugh. So this was a 5-star. This is a 5-star. If you have read Robert Jackson Bennett before, I highly recommend picking this one up. I know if you're interested in it, that the Broken Binding has a super special edition coming out. So like, this was great. I really liked it. That's where we're gonna end, is on that high note, because wow, did I enjoy that. Whew. So that's been 20 minutes of me rambling. Hopefully I can trim this down a little bit. I am going to go relax in the quiet until my family returns. And I will see you guys in the January Reads Part 2. Thanks for watching, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know if you've read any of these, especially if you've read or you're going to read The Tainted Cup, because I really feel like more people need to read that one. It's going to be so fun. It's going to be great. I hope it goes over well. That's it from me, y'all. Again, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.